Tax season is one of the most excruciating things that we all have to go through, unfortunately, right? There's two things in life that people have to go through, and that's death and taxes, and we all hate doing that. And some of the ways to get feeling good about your taxes is actually hiring a professional and what that entails. And sometimes we don't want to hire a tax professional because they might cost too much. Well, we're going to go ahead and dive into that on this episode. Joining me today is Sam White over at West Ridge Financial Services. Sam, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
To talk about this lovely topic that we just, we have to talk about. People don't want to talk about it. I'm sure there's people right now that, so at the time of this recording, guys, it's February. So I'm sure there are some people there like, I need to do taxes, and that's about the only thought they've given it. They haven't even started trying to get things together. But I kind of wanted to, before we dive into all the taxes and the financial planning, what made you want to get into this field and help people with their taxes, because, right, like a lot of people, they're like, I hate doing my own taxes, let alone the thought of doing everybody's taxes can be crippling. So what made you want to start doing this?
Yeah, honestly, so true story. I was 17, 18, and I had the same thought of like, it's so expensive to go get my taxes done. I don't want to pay to get it done anymore. I mean, we had a local H&R Block. The guy that owned it was amazing. And so anyway, long story short, he was selling it to another gal. She was great. And then I went in, talked to them a little bit, decided to try it on my own, right? TurboTax, online, whatever. Mm-hmm. Completely botched him up, messed it up so bad. So I went, got the IRS letter, obviously couldn't call anybody at TurboTax. So took it in, had the guy, amazing gentleman named Larry. And he looks at it and he's like, I don't know what you did. And I was like, I want to know why I did this though. Like, well, how did I mess it up? I don't get it. And so they offered me a job. The next year I started training. It was a couple years before I really got into doing taxes, but I did it part-time for a few years and fell in love with it. Like, I love planning. There's so much we don't understand about the tax laws that I like puzzles. So it's really fun to kind of put it together and kind of dive into it. But the only reason I started doing taxes is because I messed up my own taxes years and years ago. Yeah.
So. Well, now we got the adage of AI, right? AI. And so I feel like a lot of people might be trying to do taxes on like, okay, well, AI can help me do my taxes.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Like, I'm curious to know like a tax professional's thoughts on people trying to do taxes, leveraging AI to help them do it. So...
Yeah, I mean, AI is amazing. I mean, there are some really great attributes to AI. I use different AI tools like note takers, and I use AI to, do some quick research sometimes. But AI scours the internet. It doesn't necessarily scour dedicated sources. So AI will tell you can do certain things because some, guy on some TikTok said you could do it, and it's grabbing that information saying, well, this guy says it's okay. We see a lot of errors. And one of my least favorite things is when clients send me things from ChatGPT and they're like, hey, ChatGPT says we can do this. And I usually reply with an IRS link that's like, you can't. But that's that's a good idea. And I want people to think outside the box. So I just think it has it's just like, your doctor. ChatGPT can help you figure out kind of your symptoms and what's going on, but it can't solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And there's so many outside things you're not thinking about long-term wise that neither is ChatGPT.
Yeah. So what are some of the added benefits of hiring like a tax professional? Because I'll be honest, this is the first year hiring a tax professional for ourselves, and I did it. Thankfully, I didn't botch it. I didn't botch it too bad on my taxes. But what are some of the added benefits of having a tax professional? Obviously, we touched on one, right? Like, people just not having a clue, right, of what to do, what to input. And so it can be like, holy crud, like you can get a letter from the IRS and now you have to hire somebody to try to fix it, which I imagine would cost even more than what it would just to have someone like kind of do like, I'm going to do like a car now, like a preventative maintenance, right? Like, I'm going to send it in, get the oil change, and instead of like, okay, the engine blew up because you didn't get the oil change, and now it's going to cost you thousands to try to rectify this. But what are some of the other added benefits of hiring a tax professional?
That's a great question. I think there's pros and cons for everything. And one of the things that I always say is worth outsourcing is tax prep. Solely because, again, if you don't know what the end result should be on a tax return, how do you trust what's online? So you go through, you use online software, my favorite thing is when clients are like, yeah, I was putting it in and the little green bar was going up. It kept telling me I was getting more money. And I'm like, well, but was it right? And they're like, well, I don't know. I was just looking at the green bars. So yeah, that works, but it also may not be right. And it could cost you money in the long term. And so, that's always, a pro, but also the planning piece. You have a small business. You may want to, think you want to write everything off this year. Or what if you're going to buy a house? There's so many planning aspects that you wouldn't know, and why would you? But when you're getting a tax professional involved, you're having somebody sit down and say, like, yeah, your business showed zero this year, but now you can't buy a house, or, we're not going to get approved for financing, or should we write everything off in 1 year for your depreciation? So there's so many different pieces of it that go together that a professional knows, but, online software just doesn't always know.
Oh my goodness. I relate to that so much, like doing my own taxes, right? The little green bar in TurboTax, like, yes. It's almost like the stock market, right? It's like, buy, sell, because there are things like I would like input and I'm like, okay, cool. And then watch it go down. It's like, oh no. I don't want it to go down. Like,
take it back.
Yeah. It's like, okay, how can I get that money back? And so it's like, you're trying to play the number. And sometimes you can get into, you're putting in wrong information because you're watching the number and you're trying to make the number go up rather than down, and it's scaring you. And then the other thing that I've noticed with like TurboTax is it doesn't really tell you, because I did my taxes and just like you said, like, oh, we had $0 in the business. I was one of those people. Like, I mean, it wasn't $0, but like, we had a good year, and then we went to go to refinance our house and all that stuff to try to pay for some like projects and possibly look at getting a, car and like trying to free up some funds. And yeah, they came back and they're like, yeah, you barely made hardly anything. I was like, what do you mean? Like, no, like I made a lot. And they're like, well, we have to look at, it's the Scheduled C, right? The Scheduled C line. So they're like, we have to look at this line, and it's showing that you didn't really make a whole lot, so we can't do anything for you. And I was like, holy smokes. Well then, right, lo and behold, one thing after the other happened. It's like, how do I pay for this? Because I can't tap into the
right.
And so, for people living paycheck to paycheck, especially as you're an entrepreneur, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And, it gets really tight and really scary, and to not be able to tap into some of the resources you have because you just didn't know what you didn't know on your taxes.
Right.
Is huge.
Yeah, we see that. I mean, it's sometimes the opposite too. We have businesses that make a lot of money. They did really good this year, and they leave the money in the business because they're going to reinvest it, or they're going to buy a building. They do all these really cool things, but they don't understand that the net profit is still taxable. And so there's just a lot of conversations on both sides of it. I wrote too much off, or maybe I should have done things differently for planning purposes. That people just, it's hard to think about because our tax law is complicated. It's like 75,000 pages. It's not made for you and I just to get. And the laws change every year. So it's one of those really fun, interesting things for sure.
Yeah. And if you can understand all 75,000 pages, like, I don't like to read. And then on top of that, I feel like, right, like with the tax laws, it's in that legalese, but it's also in a different kind of like format. So it's like you can read a couple sections and you just go, what the heck does that even mean? Like, I got like, what is it referring to? And I feel like they've done that on purpose. So that way you don't understand what's going on. So it's great to have professionals who are out there. Right. Now, I know one of the misconceptions that I had is tax professionals, they cost a lot of money. Now that I know, I mean, it can, right? I feel like there's a lot of different tax professionals. Rates are different across the board depending on who you work with. But what is like the average someone might pay a tax professional?
So it depends on a lot of different factors. It depends on where you're at. Northern Colorado versus Minnesota, right? Mm-hmm. Our rates are so different. It depends on the experience of the person. I would say on average for a tax prep, a personal return, maybe with a Schedule C small business, you're probably looking between $400 and $600 a year. if I'm not mistaken, though, I was doing some cost comparison with TurboTax because we recently raised our fees.
Yeah.
And I was anxious about it. But I raised them because I had a client who had a small partnership. And she's like, Sam, I just wanted to do this on my own. I didn't want to have to pay to get a professional to do it. So I did it on TurboTax. It was really simple. Little income, little expenses. And this was last tax season. And she goes, can you just look at it? Because I need the K1s and just make sure. And I don't normally do that during tax season, but she was a good friend. And so I looked at it and I said, man, this is bad. We got to do some things. And she's like, oh, we have to amend it. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, we do charge, full price. And I said, so what did you pay on TurboTax? And she goes, well, it was like $900. And I said, wow.
Oh, wow.
I'm grossly undercharging if you're paying more on TurboTax. So, we set our own fees. Some of the things people think is like, oh, it takes you an hour. Like you spent an hour on my return. I did spend an hour on your return, but the software and insurance and, this last summer alone with all the changes, we had a lot of tax law changes in 25. Mm-hmm. I spent over 70 hours in continuing ed just on the tax law changes. So it's so much more than just the hour we're doing on your tax return. That's where the pricing comes from. And the more complex your return, the more expensive it should be. I think one of the things I see that drives me kind of a little crazy is people will go spend thousands of dollars to get their taxes done because somebody has a CPA behind their name. CPAs are important in some aspects of accounting. EAs are more tax. That's what we focus on. We're only doing taxes. And so a lot of times I think people will spend a little bit more because of, credentials, but, a tax professional should do planning and should have conversations. And so it's just like anything else.
Yeah.
In marketing too, or podcasts, you want to make sure you have somebody who's just good at what they do.
Yeah. And, like with anything, any service. So you mentioned like the video and the podcast where I'm like, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, but we're just going to use this example. We're only in your studio for like 90 minutes. Why does it cost that? It's like, well, there's a back end portion.
Yeah.
And also we're trying to make sure like the topics, like if we're consulting beforehand, making sure you have like we're doing the work, the market research to try to figure out what people are listening to then help provide you with the topics so you can speak to those professionally in that field. So it's like, yeah, you're only in here for 90 minutes, but we're doing so much more work on the back end.
Yeah.
And, we have lights too. Like we got to pay for the electricity that's kind of coming through it. But yeah, like I've heard like that was kind of my skepticism at first, right? Is I was like, yeah, how much do you pay for tax? Just asking people. And they're like, yeah, we pay about $3,000. I was like, no, that is insane about TurboTax though, that they were paying like $900. I know I did like $395. I tried to do like the audit defense. And come to find out, it was actually you who gave me that advice. It's like, they will help you if they screwed up on their end. But if you screwed up on your end, you're kind of hosed. And right there, something flashed in my mind when you said that. And I was like, holy crud, because one of the things that TurboTax does. Now, again, this isn't like... this isn't
bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. We're not trying to put TurboTax down or anything. But something just... in my mind, and I don't have anything to base this off of. This is just my own personal opinion. But right in TurboTax, it says it's okay to estimate.
Yeah.
And it's okay to estimate. And so when you said, yeah, but if you input something wrong on your end, they are not going to help you in the audit defense. It's only on their end. And so when you said that, and then I was like, oh, but they tell me it's okay to estimate here. It's okay to estimate here. Something inside of me just felt like, I feel like they're trying to weasel their way out of the audit defense should I get audited. Thankfully, I've always been in like the low green and like, yeah, nothing has come back. So that has been great. But I love that you guys also do like the financial planning piece. And I feel like those go hand in hand because what you're doing on your taxes can make an impact on your financial planning, or how your financial planning will make an impact on the tax side of things. And so why is it good for someone to have like a financial planner? I want to kind of switch gears and kind of get into the financial planning, because I feel like, financial plan, that's for the millionaires. That's for the bougie people, like they have the 401ks and they've got all these investments and houses. And so I don't qualify for that. But financial planning is for everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody should be financial planning. And so what are some of those benefits of having a financial planner?
Yeah. So, I mean, 10 years ago, I realized how important it is that, like, on the tax side, as I'm going through things, how important it is and how much it ties into the financial planning side of things. You know, we look at right now when we're doing your taxes, and usually it's too late to do anything for a prior year. So that's where the planning comes into place is, well, if we're doing some financial planning, we could have decided to do XYZ this year. And then by the time you get to tax season, it's easy. It's done. There's no going back and saying, I wish I would have done this.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's very few accounts that you can still contribute till April. And on the planning piece, that's the stuff we think about is, well, you know, yeah, right now, if you put money into an IRA, you're going to save $1,000. But if we do it differently, could we save something even more in the future? You know, people talk about Roths all the time. Well, Roths are amazing. Is that the way you should go and pay a little bit more in taxes? As a tax person, initially, I would always say, like, oh, do the traditional. Let's save all the money we can right now.
Yeah.
It makes me look better. And then now as a planner, too, I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But we should really look at it. Does that make sense for you long-term wise? You know, because if you're sitting in retirement with only all these accounts that we've tax deferred until retirement, well, now we're going to pay more taxes in retirement. So it's this balancing act where that financial planning piece and this industry, it's kind of crazy to me that there's not more planners that do taxes and vice versa, because these intertwine so much. And, you know, prior to becoming a financial advisor and really getting into the financial advising world, working with other financial advisors wasn't as much of a priority. And I didn't understand kind of why they weren't reaching out, asking those tax questions and vice versa. You know?
Yeah. So I know, so you're based here in Northern Colorado.
Yes.
Do you have like a specific licensing that you can only do within, because right, like you have state tax and all that stuff. But I was curious if, you know, like, would you be able to help somebody that's in Texas, New Mexico, Wyoming, or do you have to be licensed in those areas in order to help them with their taxes or even their financial planning?
Yeah. So the great thing about the EA is it's through the IRS. So it's a federal. So I have clients in, I wouldn't say every state, but I have clients in probably 20 different states on that realm. With financial planning, it's a little bit different, and it's a little bit different on what we're doing. If we're, you know, managing assets, things like that, there is special licensing we have to get, but it's super simple. And usually I will, you know, if a client's reaching out from a state I'm not licensed in, I will get licensed before we have conversations, but we'll have those initial like tax conversations and see what that looks like overall too.
Now I know there's a lot of people that are like, okay, they're unsure of financially investing and trying to build something for their future. And right, you hear that old adage, when's the best time to invest? Well, the best time to invest, just like a tree, it was yesterday. It was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When's the next best time? It's today. But some people, they feel like that just might not be an attainable goal, right? I know I've talked to some brokerages and they're like, oh yeah, you have to have $2,000. Like a down, almost like you're almost opening like an account. But what is like the minimum that people would need like upfront to say, hey, I want to start planning? And what is like, is there a minimum deposit that they have to have, right? Like I can't afford to put $500 in a month, you know,
right.
we're strapped as it is, but is there something that, you know, they could change that, hey, here's this little amount, go ahead and put it in. Like, what are those amounts like?
So it really depends on the situation. So we do things a little bit different. You know, if you don't have, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars walking in the door, that's okay.
Most of us, I don't. I wish I did.
Just write you a check.
Yeah.
Honestly, some of my favorite clients to work with are clients that don't hit some of those like generic minimums that a lot of companies set. And those minimums are there for a reason, and I do understand that. But when we look at things like, maybe you don't have thousands of dollars to get started. That's okay. Sometimes we'll just write a financial plan. You don't have to, I mean, we'll do a one-time thing and get you a goal set up so that you can start saving and have those thousands in the future. And I mean, we've set up accounts starting with $500 and they do $50 a month, or, you know, they do a one-time a year contribution. And maybe they don't set up accounts. Maybe it is just the planning piece. And that's, we're so focused on the planning piece in our office that we don't have those minimums set up. and I don't foresee that we will, because we want you to get started with something. Now, you may have $2,000 and we may not want to open an account. We may tell you to go open, a savings account for now.
Yeah.
But that's just to save you money if that works better for you, just because the types of accounts may be more cost efficient to put it in a CD for a while and then revisit later on.
Okay. Now, you have just celebrated 10 years in business. So congratulations. You just told me that earlier today. And that is monumental. And so, one, that's credibility to you. You're doing things right. You're not just some tax, because I feel like I see like little tax shops just kind of pop up and then they go away. And I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. Like, were they just like a national brand trying to get your money, trying to just like input numbers and then out the door you went? Or did they not manage things correctly? Did they do things shady? Like, I have no idea what's going on under the hood of that. But what has contributed to that? What do you think that has contributed to your success? Being 10 years in business, being 10 years in the financial world and working with taxes and doing the financial planning. What do you think has been such a great success for you? And why have you guys been able to sustain for so long, even through COVID, right? Like we keep bringing up coming people like, oh, we should put it in the past. Should always talk about your history, guys. Never forget your history. And so we're going to keep pounding that drum. And so in that way we don't forget it. But like, what do you think has contributed to your success?
I think it's that we're so different. We're not like other tax offices. We're not like other financial advisors. There are really great financial advisors out there. There's really great tax people out there. But in my experience in working with other professionals in this industry, I'm really focused on the things like communication, following up. We're open year round. We'll do consultations, we'll do calls. And I think our clients respect that and really appreciate that. And they tell everybody else. And so word of mouth is probably 90% of our business we get by referral. I've had this amazing team and it's changed and grown. But I've had this team of people that have come along. I always call it my adventure. The last 10 years adventure with me.
Yeah.
And so we've had some team members that, come along and help you change and grow and figure out what you want to do. We used to do bookkeeping. We don't anymore. The bookkeeper that worked for me, I love, and she moved and I'm sad. And so I was, made decisions based on that, but I still send her business or like the company. And she's just this amazing person. So I think our success is truly, I can't take credit for it. It is our clients and it is our team. And this, we really try to build a reputation. Our client service is our number one goal every year. How do we make the client experience better? I think I drive everybody crazy in my office because I'm like, can we make the client experience better in this call? But it's just because I think that, you're important. And if you're choosing to work with us, that's important to us. Like we should take that and be appreciative. It's not to take for granted. So I think that is part of the reason we grow every year. And it's been a crazy adventure. That's awesome. So we've heard your story, a little bit about your tax personal story. I've mentioned a little bit about mine. But what is some of your, I guess, favorite story, maybe even scary stories, right? Like of taxes that you might be willing to share. I know you see hundreds, if not thousands of people every year. And so trying to narrow it down might be hard, but if you could try to narrow it down to like a couple or, just kind of share some experiences, because I feel like, again, like this is such a big topic. No one likes to talk about. Yeah. And so one of the things is I want to try to help people like, yes, taxes are scary. We're not trying to scare you, but if you have the right expert in your field, man, like you can have that stress just kind of taken off your shoulders and you can just rely and focus on other things, like maybe enjoying your family instead of pulling out your hair because you got to sit down in front of your computer for the next 4 hours and bust out your taxes. And hope they're right. Yeah, right. Cross fingers. Don't knock on my door, IRS. Where's that green car? I always joke about like I should just make videos about the stories of people that, I see. I am very blessed with like some amazing like clients and people in my life. But we've seen some of the hardest ones that we're dealing with right now are, clients that are hearing things on the news, social media, deductions and the changes from our tax bills last year. A lot of what actually passed and what was talked about is different. That's every year. It happens every time there's a bill change or a proposed bill change. One of the things that I'm struggling with a little bit this year is my clients that are on Social Security. You know, if you listen to social media, you listen to the news, Social Security is not taxable, Social Security is not taxable. It is taxable still. Like, that did not change. And so there's a lot of confusion for clients, and it's hard, but it's also really rewarding to be able to help those clients understand it. But we've had clients this year that have come in with the full expectation Social Security is not taxable. They even made some changes last year, and this is where their financial advisor should have gave them a little bit different information. But I had a client just recently who came in. They took more out of their IRAs, thinking we have more wiggle room in our tax bracket. And then we had to have the hard conversation of, well, this is what actually changed, not what you were thinking. And so just kind of walking them through, like, yeah, we have a big tax bill. We have to figure it out. How do we move on and change it and structure it so in the future it doesn't happen again? But I feel like that happens quite a bit, is just misunderstanding what the rules are. I think some of my favorites are, if somebody gets an inheritance and they call us and they say, oh my gosh, I have to pay all this money in tax, and then we get to sit down and figure out like what's actually taxable. Sometimes there's no tax on some things that you're inheriting, and that's the stuff that's really fun, is like going through and figuring it out and making a game plan and like, what do we do with it then, and how do we make sure it's for the best. And I think college as well. People with kids in college, just there's not a lot of information, and I get people that are like, well, I can't claim my kids because they're 18, and then it's well, yeah, you can, and and so we start going through all of that and kind of walk through, and that's been really, really like cool to see too, is like, how do we plan for college, but also how long can you claim your kids, and how how many scholarships can we get, and all these other things that go along with it. Yeah,
and I love that you mentioned the Social Security thing, and that's I think that's another added benefit of having a tax professional, a financial planner in your corner, is that you guys are in this day in, day out. You're not being consumed by the mainstream media or social media, right? Like, there's a lot, and even now there's like AI stories going, like, I don't know if you've seen them, but it's like, here's this story on, it was one of like Family Feud or whatever. I'm like, I've watched Family Feud. I don't ever remember seeing this. That would have made like headlines, and like people are making up these stories, probably using AI, or they're just, hey, we're just going to do it. And so there's so much fake stuff out there. And so having a financial planner, a tax professional, like, nope, here is what the law says. Here is what we have to do. And here's how you can get the tax breaks. Here's how you need to plan, all that stuff, instead of relying on just what's out there. Because like you said, if you're trying to use ChatGPT as a search, it's pulling information from everywhere. Right. I guess the only advice I would say, if you're still stuck on like the ChatGPT thing, load in the IRS $75,000 page document and say, I need you to stick to this document and let me know what I can do. Good luck. But even then it might break, because I have tried to load documents into ChatGPT and it's like, oh, this is a good segment. It's like, no, that's not. That it really isn't. And so you really have to have a whole lot of discernment. So I have two more questions I want to ask, because I know we're kind of getting lengthy on time. But the first one is, how often should someone be checking in with a tax professional or a financial planner? Is it every 3 months, every 6 months, once a year, when a big life event changed and that's it? Like,
it's a great question. So on the financial advising piece, you should be meeting with your financial advisor at least once a year, at minimum. It depends on your situation, right? Because if you're a growing business, a new family, you've got all these changes, it should happen more often. So quarterly, twice a year makes complete sense. I always like to see, especially new businesses, touch base with me once a quarter. Now, does that mean we're going to sit down and do an in-person, like face-to-face, go through everything? Maybe. Maybe it's just a phone call, but just to see where's your income at, where's your, what changes do we have? For more established, people in retirement that are just kind of going with the flow, no big changes, once a year is generally okay. But anytime there's a big life event, you should be reaching out and saying, hey, this is happening. This might be happening. What should I know? What should I plan for? I did have a very large handful of clients when we had all the tax law changes that just, reached out via email or called and said, hey, what should I know? How does this apply to me specifically? And And that was great. One of the things we do that's kind of cool is we offer a year-end seminar for all of our clients. And we just kind of update everybody on, what tax laws have changed, what options do they have, what should they be thinking about before the end of the year. So it depends, but if you're growing, if things are crazy, quarterly, semi-annually makes sense.
Yeah. And I know we talked a lot. There's a lot of great information, and I feel like we are just at the tip of the iceberg of all this that we've kind of talked about. But is there anything that you would like to add that maybe we haven't touched on that you would like somebody to know about financial planning or taxes or both, or both?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, you kind of touched on it already, is, you have to start somewhere. And so a lot of times people are like, well, I didn't reach out because I don't think, I'm big enough to hire, a tax person. I'm not big enough to hire a financial advisor. But sometimes you're not going to get big enough unless you start somewhere. And so just starting with that first step, looking at, and even if it's not using a tax person, but maybe it's just sitting down and saying, okay, I've got debt, or I want to start a retirement account. What does that look like? And just getting those first steps in place so that down the road it might look a little different for you is so incredibly important.
Yeah, man, I love that. So if you guys would like, it's Westridge Financial. What is the website in order to get in contact with you, or what's the best way to get in contact with you, I guess I should say?
Yeah, the website has a lot of great information. It's just westridgeaccounting.com. But calling our office is probably the best. We have this amazing group of admins. But calling our office, best way to get a hold of us, 970-515-5267. And they have all the information about all the things.
Okay, awesome. And again, she mentioned the tax seminar. You have a video of that is usually up there and updated. So if you guys just go to the website, you guys can get some information about what changed this year for the 2005 tax year, right?
25.
Okay, 2025, right? Like we're in 2026, but it's like taxes always are year back. So I want to make sure that I said that correctly.
Yeah.
So definitely visit the website, get the resources. If you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to Sam directly in her office, right? And just start that conversation. It costs you nothing except a little bit of time to pick up the phone and have that conversation and start planning accordingly, right? It is a massive endeavor, but right, that old adage, like how do you eat an elephant? Well, you one bite at a time, right? And so that first bite is getting in touch with a financial planner or a tax professional just to have that initial conversation. Also, if you guys are liking this content, let us know in the comments, or if there's something that you want to hear, if you guys need to hear more information or have questions, definitely leave us comments in below, and we'll make sure that those questions get answered for you guys. Again, we're making this podcast for you guys, our audience, and we want to make this as valuable for you as possible. So, Sam, thank you again for being on.
You just missed the most important part. Tell your friends to like, share, and post this podcast.
Oh, there you go.
People hear it as well.
There you go. Yep, the like, share, and post. That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.